We will start with some introductions tonight. My name is Tori Park, and I am the director of the St. Louis Vacancy Collaborative. My role is centered around coalition building, which means that I help coordinate and facilitate the convening of a wide variety of groups and individuals representing a broad range of community members, from St. Louis City staff to private institutions, nonprofits, and neighborhood residents. I provide oversight and leadership of our 6 work groups as they work together to identify and implement an action plan to address vacancy in the city of St. Louis. We have a small but mighty group of staff members and community leaders who are here tonight representing the organization, and I'm happy to introduce a few different folks. And this by no means represents everyone, but we're glad to have some of them here tonight. Just to let you know that coming up, we will have some representatives from our different work groups who will be happy to answer any additional questions you have after the presentation. This includes Dana Malkus from the Neighborhood Engagement Group, Samantha Lee Smugla, who is part of the Reinvestment and Reuse Group, Stephanie Herbers, who is with the Vacancy Prevention Work Group, and Laura Ginn should be here. She represents both the data analysis and the stabilization, maintenance, and demolition groups. So I think it would be great for us to not forget our wonderful Tashara Earl. If you wanted to introduce yourself, Tashara, and just let folks know what your role is and what you'll be doing here tonight, and then we can turn it over to Zondi Barrett.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tashara Earl, and I am the Vista for St. Louis Vacancy Collaborative. I am here to help facilitate this beautiful webinar with my team, and I will help to facilitate the chat section when it's time for that. Of course, I'm here to help with communication and also build relationships, and I'll pass it on over to our presentation facilitator, Zondi Barrett.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zondi Barrett. I am the Lead for America Fellow with the Vacancy Collaborative, and I'm here just to kind of guide you through the Vacancy Collaborative, the work that we're doing, and our work plan for 2022-23. I'm really excited to share the work that we've done so far and where we're going next. So we'll go ahead and get started. What tonight is going to look like, I'll start by talking a little bit about who the Vacancy Collaborative is and why we do the work that we do. Then I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about the process we went through to develop our work plan. And then the heart of this presentation really is digging into our projects and the ones we've completed and also the ones that we have moving forward and looking at that. And then finally, I'll wrap up talking about how you can find our work plan, how you can get involved in the Vacancy Collaborative, and then we'll have time for question and answer. And we'll leave quite a substantial amount of time for question and answer. So as you have questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to write them down, put them in the chat, but we'll definitely be answering those later. So a little bit about why the Vacancy Collaborative exists. As a lot of us know, vacancy is quite a substantial challenge for the St. Louis region and St. Louis City. We have the 3rd highest vacant property rate in the country, and a lot of this vacancy is concentrated in predominantly Black communities in our city and in our region. And this is an equity issue, right? Vacancy leads to high crime, it leads to lower property values, it leads to lower environmental health outcomes. And so by addressing vacancy, we're also addressing a lot of other equity issues that we face in this region. So the Vacancy Collaborative was developed to address this issue. It started out of some talks with SLACO and conversations back in 2015. And then was officially launched in 2018 with some public workshops to identify what are priorities for St. Louis. And the collaborative is a coalition of many different, over 40 different organizations around the city, many different city departments, and many different individual volunteers who really care about this issue. We are backboned by our Fearless Vacancy Advisory Committee, as well as 6 different working groups. And I will get more into what each of the working groups does in a second when I talk about projects. But for now, I want to highlight what each of them are. We have anti-displacement, data analysis, neighborhood engagement, reinvestment and reuse, stabilization, maintenance and demolition, and vacancy prevention. And so the work that we're doing, it's a lot of different things. We pull together resources and share them out to residents. We do trainings and outreach for residents, rehabbers, and other organizations that are interested in vacancy. We have developed and we are currently hosting data tools to understand what the scope of vacancy is in our region. We are advocating for legislation and policy that's going to address vacancy from many different angles, and I'll get into a little bit of the different types of legislation in a little bit. And then last but certainly not least, we're supporting city pilot programs that are addressing different aspects of vacancy. So we're here mostly tonight to talk about our 2022-2023 work plan. And this work plan is really here to think about how we can coordinate all of our wide-ranging partners who are working on this issue. It's also helping us track our progress so we can see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. It's giving us a jumping off point to work on existing efforts and learn about best practices for addressing vacancy. And it's helping us communicate our goals and action steps with the greater St. Louis community, such as tonight, we're having this webinar to really speak about all the work that we've done. This work plan has been very vital because it's a collaborative process. We bring many different people into the room to talk about what our priorities are. We've got lots of different brains working on these issues. So it's not just one person coming into the room, but many different brains coming together to create this work plan. It's also an iterative process. We don't just go once we decide that this is what we're doing and we're going to go for it. We talk about it for a while, synthesize that information, bring it back to the larger group, and have this happen several times throughout this process to really make sure that we're hitting on the action steps and goals that we really care about. So thinking a little bit about our process, this is a linear timeline, but obviously this is not a linear process, as I've mentioned. But we first started by really reviewing our progress from the last work plan and seeing what action steps and goals we've accomplished and where we still have to go. From there, we looked at, what are the steps that we have completed that we can say, okay, that's done, we really accomplished that, and what we want to make sure we keep in this current work plan. We then identified what are new action steps, and these could be things that we maybe started between when we developed the last work plan and this one. We want to make sure that those don't get left behind, or they could be totally new ideas that people have come up with during this process. And then finally, taking all this information and really synthesizing it, we compiled it into a document which we can show later, designed it and published it to the greater community. All right. And now for what I said, really the heart of this presentation is talking about our major projects. And so we'll go through each working group and really hit on a couple of really highlighting projects from each group. This is certainly not all the work that the Vacancy Collaborative does, but it is, it's a portion and it really highlights some of their key projects. So the Vacancy Advisory Committee, this is really the backbone and the heart of our organization. They work on issues such as fundraising. So a lot of the work that we do can be done just with some volunteer hours and the work and commitment of the people who are interested in this work. But that's not the case with everything. And we do need fundraising for several of our projects. And so that comes from the work of the Vacancy Advisory Committee. They also help us with governance. We are quite a young organization and we're still, working through exactly how we want to move forward with this work. And so governance guidance from the Vacancy Advisory Committee has been very vital. And then finally, collaboration with city government. This is not an issue that we could accomplish just with the private sector or just the public sector or just nonprofits. It's really collaborative. And so making sure that we have ongoing, very strong relationships with all parts of city government working on this issue is very vital. The next group I want to talk about is anti-displacement. And the anti-displacement group really focuses on, as we are reducing vacancy across our city, we're going to have a lot of development happening. And we want to make sure that development does not then displace people from their neighborhoods and their communities. And so a couple of projects that the group has worked on, one is the Equitable Development Scorecard. This is essentially, it's a project we're working on right now and moving forward with. And it's based on work out of Minneapolis that will allow neighborhoods to look at new developments that are happening and make sure that they meet certain requirements for their communities. And it will hopefully be just another tool in the arsenal for making sure that people are not displaced and really have control over what's happening in their neighborhoods. The other project is, this was wrapped up earlier this year. It's our Equitable Development Workshop Series done in the West End neighborhood. It was in partnership with Cornerstone CDC and the East PA, and it covered issues like keeping homeowners in their homes, doing youth empowerment work, thinking about how to make the neighborhood more mobile friendly in terms of walking, and other things like that. And so these are just two of the many projects coming out of this working group. The next group that I want to highlight is our neighborhood engagement group. This group is really focused on how can we strengthen the way that neighborhoods are addressing vacancy and the mechanisms they have with which to do that. One of these projects is working on a framework for the formal recognition of neighborhood associations. It's quite a complicated topic. I know that Dana has quite a long presentation that really goes into all the specifics, but I will try and summarize it the best I can right now. Really the issue is that, right, some neighborhoods have very strong neighborhood associations and others maybe not so much. And we really want to make sure that across the board, across our city, that every neighborhood has a strong group of organized people who are ready to kind of fight for what they want in their neighborhood and maybe have the oversight on what's going on in the neighborhood to control what's happening. The other project is just reaching out to different neighborhood associations. This is a neighborhood map that was developed by the group, and it shows where each of the neighborhood organizations are. So that was part of the project, and the other half is just really going and meeting with different neighborhood associations and communicating about what the Vacancy Collaborative does. The Vacancy Prevention group is really focused on making sure that vacancies don't happen, and this happens in a couple of different ways, but the focus recently has very much been on making sure people are not pushed out of their homes. One of the projects for taking care of this is home repair. This happens in a couple different ways, but as you can see, recently a grant was awarded to study how home repair needs, what the actual need for it is in St. Louis. There are also efforts to work with the home repair provider group and making sure that they have the resources and connections they need to do home repair for seniors and low-income folks in our city. The other project I want to highlight is our tax relief legislation, and this is for aging and low-income households. The point of this is that as we do development and as houses become less vacant, property values are going to rise, and this is going to lead to a tax increase that some fixed income families cannot handle. And so if we can freeze tax values as they are now for certain families, they won't be displaced as property values rise. So right now there is some legislation that will be introduced in this next state session. And we're really trying to be part of that conversation and making sure that it is meeting the needs of our fellow St. Louisans. The data analysis group has been working hard on our Vacant Property Explorer. This was released in July, and what it does is it takes data from many different city departments and uses an algorithm to predict vacancy. And this is really opening up a lot of understanding about what the scope of vacancy is in St. Louis. Without this resource, we really are kind of going in without the insight we need. And so this has opened it up. And I would recommend after this session, taking a look at it. It's a really useful tool. And yeah, So it's a great tool. The Stabilization, Maintenance, and Demolition group is looking at what are we doing with vacancy between when something becomes vacant and when it's put back into reuse. We want to make sure that these buildings and lots are stabilized and that they aren't being a significant drain on the surrounding area. One of the big projects with this is code enforcement. I just put this map on the screen and you can see that it's a very highly complicated map of our code enforcement process. This is a project that we have been working on for the past few months and will be working on into the next year. But it's looking at when a neighbor reports a code violation, maybe there is a house down the street that's been vacant and the porch is falling apart. How do they know how that moves through the system? And so this is mapping that out so that both residents and different parts of our city agencies know what's happening. It's very complicated, but it's going to help us identify where pain points are and really work to make this process more efficient and more strategic. It's ongoing, and we're very excited to share information about it as it gets completed. The other project is Prop NS. This was passed by the voters back in 2017, and what it aims to do is to stabilize buildings that could be in the future rehabbed for reuse. There might be some buildings that if they were to be rehabbed fully by a rehabber, it just wouldn't happen because of the level of work that's needed to be done. But this program allows us to put some money in to get it to somewhat of a stabilized level so that it then can be resold at a later date. And I believe right now we're selling about 6 to 10 properties a month from this program. And so slowly getting some of those buildings back into productive use. The Reinvestment and Reuse group is working on, now that we have these vacant buildings and lots, what can we do about it? One of our projects that we're currently working on is our vacant lot success checklist. This is looking at, so when a community group sees a vacant lot down the street that they might want to turn into a community green space, how can they determine how that project is moving along? Is it reaching community members? Is it located in a space that's going to be truly accessible for children or for residents? Does it have the maintenance plan it needs? And so this is a snapshot of that checklist, but it's going to be an online tool that community groups can use and really assess where they are. As on this fictional project, you can see that the project got 6 out of 9 points. This doesn't mean that it failed by any means, but it means it's going to help the project really identify what it might need to work on in the future. So potentially this project needs to work on getting more support from community members in the surrounding block. The next project, and this will be released early next year, is our vacant lot toolkit. You can see that there is a beautiful cover on the screen right now, but this is going to be another tool for community groups hoping to do greening projects. It takes everyone through everything from really the starting building your team to deciding what the project's going to look like. Is it going to be a playground, a garden, an orchard, and really gives people those resources to do what they need in the St. Louis city. And then last but not least is our landlord and rehabber training. We just wrapped up our 2021 training, but it's an annual training series. So we'll be doing a new one for 2022. And it covers issues for landlords all across the board, from how to get funding to dealing with legal issues. And so it's another really vital resource for making sure that vacant buildings get reused and become productive parts of our city. So that, I know I threw a lot of information at you, and I want to now give you some time to think about, like, if you want more information about the work we do, you can go to our Find Our Work Plan. It is on our website, and I will now pull that up so you can see it. But our work plan is here. If you scroll down, you can find each of our main categories. Our long-term goals are here, and if you click on that, it'll bring you to each of our action steps. And these are a lot of the projects that I've been mentioning. You can also download our work plan, and that's going to bring you to a PDF version of the same information. So if that suits your needs better, that's another thing that you can look at. And then finally, I want to highlight some ways that you can get involved in the Vacancy Collaborative. You can join one of our working groups. If there's one of those working groups that really sparked your fancy, we encourage you to join them. We are going to post a link in the chat that will be a way that you can easily sign up for one of these working groups. You can also check out the work plan, as I showed on our website. You can donate to the work we do. As I mentioned, not all of the work, some of the work we do needs funding, and any donation really helps to contribute to this goal. And then finally, you can sign up for our newsletter to get any updates about the Vacancy Collaborative. Thank you for spending this time. I now want to pass it over to Shara to run our question and answer session.
Zondi, that was an awesome presentation. Thank you for all of that wonderful information. And now, as Zondi just mentioned, this is the time for our Q&A. And before we dive into that, I would like to ask for our co-chairs for our working groups that are on the call to come off mute to introduce themselves. So I am going to ask Dana Malkus if she can come off of mute so that she can introduce herself, and then I will bring on the next person as well after that.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all. I'm Dana Malkus. I teach at St. Louis University Law School, and I have been involved with the Vacancy Collaborative kind of since the beginning. I currently chair the Neighborhood Engagement Working Group.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dana. And next, I would love for Samantha Lee Smugla to come off of mute as well to introduce herself.
Thanks, Tashara. Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha, and I am one of the co-chairs for the Reinvestment and Reuse Working Group. So I'm one of those leading the charge for success metrics for vacant lots, for greening projects, and working on that vacant lot toolkit, and going to be ramping up to beyond greening in this next year to how we can create some documents and tools for those who are pursuing small development projects.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And next, I would like to ask Stephanie to come off of mute as well to introduce herself.
I'm off mute. My video won't work for some reason, but oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm one of the co-chairs for the Vacancy Prevention Working Group. I co-chair along with Pamela McLucas and Angela Drake. And there's a variety of interest and activities and efforts among working group members, but they do largely center, I think currently at least, around home repair resources and tax related assistance, whether that's promoting the new tax relief fund that recently launched, preventing tax foreclosure, and facilitating access to vacant properties when they are vacant for long periods of time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And then also I would like to ask for Laura again to come off of mute and introduce herself as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon. Laura Ginn. I'm the city's vacancy strategist at SLDC, and I'm a member of the Vacancy Advisory Committee and co-chair of the Stabilization, Maintenance, and Demolition Working Group with Sean Thomas, and previously with a lawyer from Legal Services. So if anyone wants to kind of join a leadership position in that working group, we're open to more. And then work on the data group as well. So happy to answer any questions if folks have them. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And so for this time, I did put in the chat, if you have any questions, please feel free to add it to the chat. Or if you want to come off of mute, I would ask if you can raise your hand. And pretty much if you go to the bottom screen under your reactions, you can click on raise hand. And from there, I'll be able to see who hands are raised, and I'll be able to call on you from there. All right, Kristen, you can come off of mute.
Hey, it's Kristen Bolchinsky from US Bank. Just wanted to say hello to Tori and team, and thank you for all your work on this work plan. It looks awesome. Excited about all the great things that you all are going to be doing over the next few years. And also, I had mentioned this to Tori. I'm just so excited about some of the vacant lots doing the pocket parks. I think that's a wonderful idea and just a great way for, I'm just thinking from the corporate standpoint of good team member engagement projects with our volunteers. So excited to see some of those projects come along. So thanks again for everything that you're doing, and just excited to be part of this work.
Thank you so much. Samantha, is there anything that you would like to add to that since she shouted out the pocket parks? Okay, well, if anyone has any other questions, oh, she said she can't unmute herself. Hold on one second. We all have some Zoom technical difficulties, so let's see if I can make that happen.
There we go. Thank you.
Oh, perfect.
Kristen, thank you so much. It's been a really great project. And for those of you who might not be familiar, Pocket Parks is a nonprofit that was founded almost a year ago. We're not even a year old yet. January will be our birthday. And we have worked really diligently to try to turn vacancy into vibrancy, as you saw in that vacant lot toolkit. And we start with what we have to make immediate impact. And that means if we have $1,000, we do what we can. If we have a large grant, we try to even extend our efforts to make impact. And it's been a great success. We have 4 parks now within our first year, and we're already talking to different neighborhoods about future collaborations and how we can further those efforts. And the Vacancy Collaborative has been a huge part of this collaboration, cross promotion, supporting, leading us to different potential people or donors or whatnot. So definitely a shout out there. And if you're interested in learning more, I'll put our link in the website. So thanks for the shout out.
More than welcome. And Samantha, I think I put that link in there for you while you were talking to assist with that. Perfect. Do we have, okay. I'm not sure if it's Andrea or Andrea, but you can come off of mute.
Hello.
Yes, we can
Hi,
hear you.
everyone. I'm glad to be here. My name is Andrea Gottschalk, and I just started in the Planning and Urban Design Agency last week as a community planner. So I'm looking forward to supporting the work. And yeah, looks good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much and congratulations. We definitely look forward to working with you as well. So welcome.
Thanks.
Do we have any other questions or even comments? And I'm just scrolling just to make sure I'm not missing anyone. All right, we have Shameen, our older lady, Shameen Clark Hubbard. You can come off of mute.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, don't think I'm being rude, you all. I'm on mommy duty, so I don't want to be on her driving and looking. But I did want to say, didn't know if anybody saw this, but as a proactive piece for the Vacancy Collaborative, I don't know if you all saw the fund that we launched citywide to help support people with their taxes, and that literally came from an idea of constituents calling that were getting ready to lose their house on a tax sale. So when I get to a stop, I'm going to put the link in just for anybody that may have not seen it. And if you could share with your networks, because this is the time right now, that people could really take advantage of. It does have to be the year that you are in jeopardy of going into the tax sale. But again, just a proactive piece, because we know that this is a cycle that sometimes starts where the properties get vacant. They end up sometimes back in our tax rolls, and then, we know where it goes from there. So I want to be here in support, and if anybody has any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them, but I am going to put the link to that fund in the chat as well.
Shameen, we actually, Stephanie had put it in the chat for us.
Oh, great. I'm sorry, I must have missed that. Okay.
Yeah, she just did it while I believe when you were talking, so.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you all for all of the work that you all have done and continue to do.
Thank you so much, Shameen. Truly appreciate you and all of our work you're doing as well. And so,
thank you, Alderwoman Clark-Harper. I just wanted to give you a shout out. We really appreciate this particular fund and very much support it. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So next we have Chris. You can unmute yourself and.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for presenting today. This has been awesome to hear the work that you all are doing in St. Louis. It's a critical issue, vacancy in our region. And so I'm excited to be a part of the work. I represent Semi Development Corporation. We're a nonprofit here in St. Louis that works with the unhoused and homeless population. And so I'm just interested in hearing more about considerations about the homeless population and housed populations in St. Louis, and then which working group will be best suited for that sort of work as you all plan for the next few years.
Tashara, I don't know if you had something, but I first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for being here tonight. And definitely we know that there's a link, particularly in terms of addressing homelessness. I think are two groups that would do really well for you to join. One might be our anti-displacement working group, and that is really currently focused both on, making sure that people aren't pushed out of neighborhoods, and there's a connection there to affordable housing. But additionally, we're looking for building up that educational piece in terms of letting people know exactly like how folks are displaced, what are the different outside influences usually where that can happen. And of course, that includes things like gentrification and even to the point of, we're looking at doing an equitable development scorecard, which I think was mentioned, to make sure that, any community or economic development that's happening in neighborhoods isn't pushing people out. So that's one work group. And then the other one that I think you might be interested in is our vacancy prevention work group. And some of this has been mentioned, but one of the projects that we're working on is the home repair piece, and trying to sort of study the impacts, particularly on seniors and low to moderate income folks, and how that one little piece of improving fixtures or other necessary fixes would help people to stay in their homes. And then there are a few different legislative pieces as well to help people in terms of what Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard just mentioned about, an assistance fund for property taxes. So that group is working on just a number of things, but those are kind of the highlights. And I would very much advocate if you could join one of those groups and see what might be a good fit. And then otherwise, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you to see if there's something else that you are either interested in, and or we're very much, all of our ideas are sourced from the community. So there might be some things that you can bring to the table that we haven't addressed yet.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your wonderful question. And thank you, Tori, for the explanation to that. Do we have any other questions or comments? If you are just joining, we are in our Q&A section of our presentation. And as I mentioned in the chat previously, we will be sharing this presentation along with the recording as well with the attendees. I will drop a link in the chat that has the information for the presentation, and then a little bit more information about who we are, St. Louis Vacancy Collaborative. And with that, I think I don't see any other hand raises at the moment. So I would like to pass it over to Tori.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tashara. I appreciate you navigating those questions. And certainly it's a lot to take in, honestly. So maybe once you do have a time, we can send everybody a copy of the supplemental materials, links to the website, how to get involved, all of that. And again, please feel free to contact myself or any of our staff or co-chairs if you want to get involved in the work groups. So yeah, it's a lot to digest, but really appreciate you all taking the time to be here tonight. We're excited about what's coming up for the Vacancy Collaborative in 2022 and beyond. And I would just like to reiterate that we really rely upon and value community involvement every step of the way to really do things like minimize resident displacement, stabilize housing stock, support home repair and legislation to keep people in their homes, and ultimately to reduce the negative impacts of vacancy on the health, quality of life, and safety of our neighbors, as well as the consideration of that this would alleviate the cost burden on the city. So I guess Tashara is going to put a couple links in the chat. What I would really love for folks to do is use that link that says get involved, sign up today for our newsletter, and fill out just a really quick, like 2-minute survey for your interest in getting involved in a working group. And with that, I would just, looks like we're going to get out a little bit early, and I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays. And thank you so much for all of your time tonight.